it's a very common term now, but I had no idea my Airbnb arbitrage. I'm like, oh, I'm doing
Yeah.
that. That's what people call it, is arbitrage.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was picking up too. You think you're just renting out another part of
Yeah.
where you live, and now people are branding it Airbnb arbitrage,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it is a kind of under the category of a hack. It's like the real estate term house hack. This is like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to be subsidizing my rent, if not to the point of covering it, to cash flowing it. And I want you to define and explain this to me, how this is a win-win for both parties, because the arbitrage aspect kind of lends it towards you're cheating it, or you're kind of taking advantage of a situation, when this can really, really be an awesome win for sellers, or not sellers, landlords, owners.
Yeah.
This can be an awesome win for them too. And
Yep.
obviously, like you said, you've hit some adversity when you're calling people up, you're saying, hey, I'd like to rent out your place at higher than market rent. I'm going to bring everything in there. I'm going to run it, but I am going to sublease it. I need you to agree with that. I need you to know that I'm not going to be the one living there all the time. I'm going to
Yeah.
have guests. I'm going to host guests.
Yeah.
Why is this such a big win for the owner that you're working with? And explain how that interaction goes, because I think that's the most foreign concept here, is finding an owner that's really open to this.
Right. And that's going to be the key, is what you just finished with, is finding the owner that's open to it. And initially, like I said, it was a no after a no after a no. I think it's starting to open up more now. Potentially even the same individuals I spoke with before may now have switched over to the other side. But what I liked to explain, what I currently explain to the landlord or the homeowner, is, one, your appliances and everything else that are inside of the home are being used way less frequently. So having to replace stuff like that is going to be put over threefold, if not four, because they just don't get used. Another aspect is, yeah, just the increased monthly rent. So say for example, a place they would normally rent it for 1,400. Okay, I'll come in and I'll give you 1,600. So that's 200 more a month, which as a landlord, typically most of your rent is just going to cover your base of your mortgage and everything else. The actual cash flow isn't too high, so $200 more a month on cash flow for them is pretty substantial. And then on the third side of that is going to be coverage. So Airbnb has air cover, which I'm sure you're familiar with. As far as damages that happen to the home, a hole in the wall, a hole in the door. Actually, that's a good point. A hole in the door. That just happened here about a couple weeks ago in a property. There was a hole in the door. However it got there, that was that was a bad guess. There's been a couple bad apples, and it'll happen. But so I brought up an air cover request, and I submit the photos and the amount that it's going to cost to replace it and everything else. Airbnb takes their story with the other person, and they take everything into consideration, and ended up getting that air cover request fulfilled. So now that door is being covered and
Nice.
replaced. And so for the homeowner, there's almost like additional insurance that they didn't have to pay for, or anything as far as maintaining the home or any damages that happen.
Yeah, skeptical landlords is a whole topic matter here. And so I'm loving that you're kind of coming up with some tiers of how you're explaining this to landlords. I'm a landlord, and I really like it. I can't find a lot of holes in it. I'm thinking this sounds like a great win-win.
Yep.
But I thought of the insurance thing, and you just touched on that. That makes a ton of sense for any sort of damage or vandalism.
Right.
Can you speak at all to like liability issues? Is there additional liability coverage through air cover, or do you have to have a different policy for your property? Do you know?
Like if someone were to slip and fall type deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So air cover has up to a $1 million policy. So they cover everything basically from A to Z, which is really awesome. And that
Yeah.
clearly on the host side of things is paid for with the host fee and everything like that. So I mean, in a sense, paying for it, but it's not like directly or like
Yeah.
a side amount that you have to pay for or anything.
Yeah. And I mean, I was thinking through this too. If someone was going to approach me to do this, upping the liability coverage of my own policy and having that the lessee, the person that's leasing the property, have a liability coverage, and then Airbnb. I feel like there's some pretty good blankets of coverage there.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that, yeah, you'd be covering everything.
What can you say about like the legality of this? You know, is there's no trouble with this. Essentially, people living in the property that aren't on the lease. But that was a question that came up a lot. How should owners feel about this, like in a legal sense?
Right. So that's where the transparency aspect is huge. I mean, I'm not telling people to do this, but you could say, for example, rent the place and then be doing it. But in your contract of the lease, the term, subleasing or sublet, 99% of the time is written in there. You cannot sublease. Blah. So that's where bringing it up right away to that landlord, if this is something you want to do, that, the verbiage needs to be changed, that it's allowed to have sublease or sub in there. So the legalities of it, just as long as the homeowner themselves are, open to it, and the transparency and the conversations are there, it's all good to go.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Devyn, because the Airbnb arbitrage aspect starts to go down the road of like, hey, I wonder if I can just do this, especially for people that are renting right now. They might be thinking, hey, I've got an extra bedroom that's empty. My roommate moved out at the end of the year. Maybe I should do this. Honestly, Devyn's advice on transparency is probably the best advice that you could get, is just be above bar with all this stuff. And to me, it's very black and white in the sense of you're reaching out to an owner, you're telling them your plans. Contractually, all you need is that term that this is able to be sublet or subleased. And as long as they sign that, you sign that, it's completely an agreement between two people with a dollar amount that you're paying. And then anything over that is obviously yours. So I feel like it's pretty simple, but I want to say sometimes I feel owners might think it's more complicated than that, but it really can be pretty simple.
Yeah, it is. And that's, I mean, you hit it right on the head. It seems like something so different, and it is, because like I said, the boom kind of just happened this past year. So for people that have normally traditional rent on a year lease, and now this information is brought up to them, it's like, whoa. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but there's got to be more. And so that's where the questions come to mind. And I mean, I've had even all those people that, said no to me. They asked me very good questions about it, and they wanted to go learn their own information about it. And so it's still a very new concept. And I mean, there's stuff to learn, every day from that side of it. But one other thing that I wanted to just mention, as far as doing the arbitrage side of things, is, you have to, in a sense, have an eye for home decor, or like interior design. In a sense, you can get away with it if you want to keep it minimalistic and mattress on the floor kind of a deal. But when you're doing arbitrage, there's risk. You are on contract to pay $1,600 a month, and if you just plain Jane throw a mattress in there and it doesn't look all that great, especially with how many listings are out there now, you may find that you're not getting booked. The next month comes and you only pulled $500, so you're out $1,000 that you had to pay. And now the next month, fingers crossed, am I even going to make enough to cover that rent that I need to cover for the landlord? And then after that, you have, utilities, and then all the laundry and stuff you got to do, let alone when first starting out, your own hours for the turnovers, for the cleanings. Is this even profitable? I'm making $20 a month. This doesn't make any sense. I'm working, 20 hours. So there's got to be an eye for the interior design part of it. Doesn't need to be anything super fancy, but at least getting some decor on the walls, have a few little fake plants around even, or stuff like that. The plain Jane method, if you're able to have your own place and you want to do that, I would maybe recommend it. But when you're arbitrage, there's big risk and money that's going to have to be coming out of your pocket.